Hi, I'm Mr. Whittington, Professor of Strategy at the University of Oxford and also President-elect of the Strategic Management Society. This is a real pleasure to be introducing Bill Canady to you in the first of our two Strategy Imagination webinars this month. We will, at the end of this month, on the 29th, also be welcoming Jennifer Colisamo of the Franklin Covey organization on the 29th. For today, we do have Bill Canady, which is on the topic of building long-term strategy in fast-moving times. Bill will have a lot of insight to deliver on this. He combines a great deal of experience. He is, as you may have heard, chairman of OTC Industrial Technologies, which is a leading industrial solutions provider with 2,000 associates across the United States. He's also chief executive of Arrowhead Industrial Products, a distribution company which is active across the United States again, in the UK, India, and China. And he just mentioned to me, I understand, that you'll be opening up a presence in France. So that's tremendous. But Bill brings more than just practical experience. He's a seasoned executive, but also he has an MBA from the University of Chicago, Booth School, and is the author of two books. Recently, or in 2024, he published the book, The 80-20 CEO, Taking Command of Your Business in 100 Days. If you check it out on Amazon, you'll see that it's got over 100 reviews already. And the average review is a 4.6 stars, so that's a ringing endorsement. Just this month, Bill has published another book, and that's From Panic to Profit. And that has come out this month and is already, I believe, #7 on the USA Today top books listings. So Bill is a successful author who's considered and analyzed his own business experience and has some valuable lessons to share. We'll be talking for about 20, 25 minutes together, and there'll be some time for Q&A at the end. However, Bill said that, as I think Lauren mentioned, he's very happy to take questions as we go along using the chat function. So we both have the chat function open in front of ourselves. We'll be trying to keep an eye on that and be able to respond to questions that you might want to put to us as we go along through our interview together. So I'm about to start us off, and we've got a number of topics. What I'd like to do, Bill, is perhaps you could provide a bit of context as introduction. Talk to us a little bit about your business and what's exciting and special about it.
First of all, it's great to be with everyone today. It's exciting to be here. What a wonderful organization. So, Richard, thank you so much for having me on. And honestly, the companies we have, they're pretty. They're the things that we deal with each and every day. So on the Arrowhead company is power sports. So if you ride motorcycles or ATVs or you like to go skiing or any of that kind of stuff, we manufacture and distribute those parts all over the world. So Rich was talking about we're open up in France. We have a big business in France called Beer, and they are the leading on-road bikes distributor of products across it. So it's exciting to be in that industry for a variety of reasons, but really because it touches everyone out there, right? Not only do we like motorcycles for fun, right? Like in the United States, Supercross is big. You see these guys doing backflips, but we also use them for our daily transportation. So it's wonderful just to be part of something like that, touching people's lives in a meaningful way. And it's never been a more exciting time to be in business than it is today. There's a lot going on in the world for sure.
Thank you, Bill. So I think your experience will resonate with a lot of people. Our theme today, and I think you've given us a good nudge, is building long-term strategy in fast-moving times. And these are, as you say, very fast-moving times. Can you say a little bit perhaps about how you do the strategic planning, if you like to call it that, or the strategy process in your organization, just to get us started off?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a very well-defined strategic management process. We call it our SMP. So we're big on initials with things, and we run it on an annual basis. Right, each quarter we do something different to kind of advance it. We start out with what we call situation assessment. So what's happening out there? What's changed in our business? From that, we will build our framework. So we call it, of course, that's framework, and it's kind of the outline of where we're going, right? And we don't change our strategies dramatically each year unless something dramatic has happened. It's generally a continuation of it. From that framework, next we go to what we call as the business plan. So that's where we really start putting numbers on what we think we're going to achieve as we look forward. We typically do a 3-year rolling strategy. So every year we update it. We do sometimes in different situations do 5 years, but candidly, the last couple of years are pretty through the looking, darkly through the looking glass. The final stage is we call it action plan. That's where we map it all out, and it goes all the way across the organization. And each key step of it, and I think this is true everywhere, is as the CEO, it's my job to own the goal. Where are we going? As the company, it's their job to own the strategy of how we're going to get ourselves there. So our process is designed to involve a lot of people. It's easy to write something up yourself. No one's going to follow it, I assure you. If you can get your team to own it and do it and believe in it, you're going to have yourself a winning hand.
Fantastic, Bill. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you do get the team involved? Which levels, what works particularly well for getting people involved, how you learned that process of getting people more involved in the strategy?
Yeah, so a great question. I'll start with the last piece. How do you learn to get people involved? Because I failed so many times when I didn't get them involved. It turns out, the way you get really good at something is you do something really bad, right? So, I early in my career was on the strategy team and was helping do it, and I found I could really put together a nice strategy. It looked good. It was all aligned and everything, and it rarely had any buy-in, right? If you're going to get buy-in, I'd rather have a mediocre strategy that everyone believes in than have the absolute perfect strategy that no one will follow, right? So as far as how we do it, we're very thoughtful in how we approach it. So we typically start. It's a top down as well as a bottoms up, right? So we start with me and my team, and we'll look at the math, right? Like just where do we have to be? How many resources do we have, and things like that. That size is the prize, right? We want something that's meaningful and stretchy, but not so crazy we can't get there. And we don't want it to be just kind of business as usual, right? It's our strategy. It's where we're going. So we start with the math. We'll start with our balance sheet. We'll start with what we're capable of. From that size is the prize. And when we look at where we're going, and these are assuming you're in a business that's already running, we're going to stay in our core, right? We want to be where we are, and we want to get deeper into it. Unless something's happened, we've lost that market. Looking at my team, the question that we ask ourselves, the question that we ask them is, all right, how do we go win in that? If we've got a strategy, and I'll just make an example, just totally made up. If our strategy is to go $1 million in growth, versus our strategy is to get $100 million in growth, it's a very different strategy, right? Because just the size of it. So starting with that number and understanding that, handing that to our team, my team, and saying, you've got to go find $100 million, it allows them to say how big it's going to be, right? So they're going to put together the strategy. And what happens then is as they're building it, they then bring in their team. So the next level comes in, because that's the level in this case, in a little bigger company, that's the level that's actually going to be executing, right?
Yeah.
They'll help build that piece out, right? So now I've got ownership because I agreed with the number. My team has ownership because they're like, all right, we think we can get there. The next level down that is they're actually doing a lot of the work. So it's just the involvement. What you get when you start doing, and this continues on and on, is you get people who are like, they feel they were part of it. They feel they have some control in their life. They
Yeah.
feel like they have a saying in it. If you don't get that buy-in, I will guarantee you at some moment when it doesn't work, because we all struggle, because things change every day, they're going to say to you, I didn't believe in this strategy anywhere. I never thought we could do it. But
Yeah.
no one ever says that when they're the one who actually wrote the thing.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It becomes their strategy. They're responsible for it. They try and deliver. You talked about the sometimes a 5-year rolling, but more often recently a 3-year rolling strategy. Is that because you are finding times are changing faster than ever, or and what do you find where when you look back over your 3 years, the last 3 years? How have the assumptions, perhaps thinking concretely about your last 3 years, how have they changed? How has your world changed, and how do you see the world changing in the next 3 years?
Yeah, so the world has changed vastly. I mean, I just think back, let's go back just 5 years, right? We've gone through a pandemic, the market boomed with most everything. People were home, had money to spend.
Yeah.
Then the market crashed because, well, they spent all their money and they had to go back to work. Now we're dealing with tariffs. So, it's funny. I talk to people, but I'm old enough now that I can also remember the '07 and '08 and '09, the Great Recession. I remember gas shortages. I remember all these things now. And you start realizing that things happen all the time. And the key to it is you talked about the time of the strategy. So, Toyota, I think, at least my understanding, does this 25-year strategy. I think that's brilliant, right? Because it sets who we want to be and where we're going. And it's aspirational. But operationally, generally speaking, you can have some level of confidence in this 3 to 5 years. In other words, you can kind of see where you are. In most industries don't go away or spring up overnight. Now, it's not true everywhere. There's certain things in technology, and you can come out with a new product and it changes everything. But most of the things out there are progressions of where we're going. So you can get some line of sight. But I believe it was Eisenhower who said it best. Plans are absolutely useless, right? But the art of planning is 100% mandatory. You have to be good at it, because the very first step you take with your plan, whether you're General Eisenhower going to war, is you meet the enemy. They have a chance to punch back, if you will. In this case, we have competitors. We make a move, they make a move. A customer can
Yeah.
decide to buy our product or not buy our product. So all these wonderful plans, you really almost never actually come true. I'll just assure you, whatever number you put in your plan, let's say it's that million or that 100, that is not the number you're going to hit. You'll hit something bigger, something smaller, but it won't be that number. So start with the planning. That is critical. It gets your team together. It makes them think through the process. They'll get better at everything they do, but don't expect to actually follow the plan. And how we deal with that, Richard, is every 90 days we get our team together on our we go off site, nothing fancy at all, but we go off site, and that's where we take stock of where we are. Is what we're doing working? The world moves fast. As 90 days is sometimes not enough, but
Yeah.
you spend that time, you reassess, and you make corrections. Don't blindly follow it. 200 days ago, we didn't have 145% tariffs on China. Then we got them, and then 2 days ago, they are gone again. So
Yeah.
be prepared to change.
But I think you said something quite important too, when referring to Toyota, but also to your framework. You kind of know what your business is. And that's one of the eternal certainties, as it were. Not eternal and not absolutely certain, but it does give you a core, doesn't it?
It
Yeah.
does. Like, we were talking about power sports. So in Europe, particularly, our whole vision, our whole model is safety, right?
Mm.
It's all about the experience with the rider and safety. And you can do this in Europe very well because of regulations, right? Like, so take an example, you on your tires on your bike, they have to have so much tread. And the police will stop you, measure the tread, and then give you a ticket that will be more than the cost of buying the tires. You have to wear gloves, you have to wear rider protection, helmets, and it's very, very serious, which I think is wonderful. United States is the more freedom-based culture, and we'll let people do whatever they want. So you see people with helmets, without helmets, and things like that. So one is a little bit more stylistically, one is a little bit more safety based. So our vision, when we look at Europe, we are doing everything we can around rider safety. We are part of a group that invented the technology that when you wear the suit and you fall off, airbags pop off all around your body, right? And we just had one, and we actually have the suit in our offices where the rider was going 160 miles an hour, right? Is typically kilometers, but it was miles an hour. Lost it, laid the bike down, and walked away from it. It would have killed him for sure without that. So that's something we can do there. All right. In the US, it's going to be more around style. It's more around fashion. It's more around what's going on. And then there's a very, very big culture around things like the supercross, outdoor dirt bikes and motorcycles and adventure travel and these types of things. So it's more experience based here. And so we go to market with that. But we start way out and come back. But we look right now today to say, what can we do that is going to help us not only go there, but win the race today?
Okay, yeah, that's a good metaphor, winning the race today and beating the competition. That's super. You touched on this already, I think, but I would like to explore this a little bit further, taking advantage of your CEO experience. I think you said that you've got to make the strategy the manager's own, the team's own. So how do you as a chief executive manage that? Because it's very tempting, I think, to get more involved over time, especially if things go wrong or the environment changes, tariffs go up or they go down or whatever it is that happens. How does the chief executive limit their role in a sense, not getting too involved? I think that's what you were hinting at, because I think it must be very tempting when there's a lot of pressure on you.
There is a lot of pressure, but you got to know your role, right? So I'm very involved in the strategy, but I'm involved in at what I'm supposed to do, right? So early on in my career, when I got out of high school, I joined the Navy, right? And the one thing you learned in the Navy is everybody has to do their job, right? Any one person, like I might think your job's way cooler. And by the way, you do have a really cool job, Richard. But if I'm doing your job, I'm not doing my job, and probably something's going to get missed, right? So you
Yeah.
learn this early on going in. So when you come in and you're the CEO, there's several things that you do, but there's really two very, very important things, right? So the first is, define where you're going, set the goal. We're going to go take that hill. We're going to get in this market. We're going to do whatever it is. The next piece of it is measuring and monitoring, right? Where are we? How's it going? And then my role really is to support the team, clear things out of their way, make sure they're focused, right? Because things come at everyone so fast, and it is easy for them to get distracted. So I make sure things like, are we resource correctly? How's our balance sheet doing? Can we support the initiative, right? We'll come up and people have 9 initiatives. I know immediately those 9 are going to fail. 100%.
Yeah.
It's too many. You take a big company, in any company, but a big company, 9 initiatives will translate to over 100,000 different things that are going to flow through your company. You can't do it, right? But you can take 1 or 2, which is probably, now it's like an order of magnitude almost, but you'll be down on something. And my goal then is tied right to this person who's on the loading dock, right? We're all tied to the same thing. The question I ask the team is very simple. I say, if there's one thing that if we got it right, that if we nailed it, would change everything, well, that's our lever. That's our mission. This is where we need to bring to bear our resources. So that's the kind of thing as a CEO I'm doing. And let me tell you, that's a pretty full-time job, right? I go out to different locations. Today I'm in Houston, right? Or Dallas. I'm heading to Houston tonight. Then I'm over in France. I am walking the floors. I'm talking to people. I'm making sure that what we're doing is happening. I'm out seeing our customers and bringing that back. I call it VOC by CEO, right? Which people hate, but it's good.
VACB.
Yeah, it's
What does that
absolutely good.
mean?
VOC, so voice of customer. I go out because look, we can do all the great things we want, but if they can't feel it, it doesn't matter. If we're shipping product late or we're not taking care of it, any of this stuff, we're not going to win. Remember, we have great plans, but they actually have to be impactful. And I have walked through factories. In fact, I was in our location yesterday in Midlothian, which is right outside of Dallas. And that place has completely changed and turned around in the last 3 years. When we started, it was full of products. You couldn't walk through, you couldn't find aisles. It was just terrible. That leadership there today has absolutely turned it around. Now, how do we know that, right? Because we come and see. And as a CEO, I need to be out there and owning that. But if I'm sitting in a conference room doing slides for the presentation, that's someone else's job. They need to do theirs. I need to do mine. And as a team, we can go win.
Okay. So you get close to the customer, close to operations, and decide what's really important, identify that, and then let people whose job it is to get that right, give them the freedom to do it. I've got it. Now we're getting some questions in, and please do use the Zoom chats, all those who are listening in on this. We've got a question for Tigran. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Have you ever considered, Bill, how to react to a disruptive event that may roll your business out? I suspect you have, but do you have an example in mind, or
we're
something like
going
that?
through we're going through it right now. Tariffs,
Yeah.
right? We source about 65% of our products globally. The remaining is local, and local is wherever it's going to. So we have stuff
Mm,
coming in Europe for Europe. We have stuff in the United States, but we also get a ton of stuff Southeast Asia, and you name it, right?
mm.
Some things are only made in certain parts of the world. No matter how bad you want to get them locally, they just aren't made that way. So I'll give you an example. We sell starters for over-the-road trucks. So these big old trucks you see riding down the road, hauling all those great goods that we need, somehow you got to get them cranked up. Our products do that, right? The only place that makes that stuff is in China. The whole market years ago went over there. China's excellent at it. They do a very nice job, and the industry sources it there. Well, for us in the United States, we were all of a sudden set on 145% tariffs, right? And so what we did, we looked at our inventory and we immediately quit ordering, right? We decided we were going to hold our prices, not order more products, and use our inventory. We made a bet, right? And our bet was that this was a negotiation versus a long-term strategy around the 145%. Our bet turned out to be right? Because
Yeah.
what was it, 2 weeks ago, they pulled those back. Now we've got a 90-day window. So our next big thing, and I'm sure I'm not going to say your name right, but Taguit, maybe I'm close. You can say my name wrong if I got yours, but I apologize. It's a wonderful question. We only have a 90-day window, we believe, subject to change, where we can order products. On the 14th, we pulled that lever, just as every other company in the United States has done, and you're going to see a massive amount of products going to come, which is going to create a different problem for us. So these types of things happen all the time. Most of them isn't driven by geopolitical issues. Sometimes it's just your factory burns out. I have had, like, take smokers, right? Wonderful people and all that, but we don't let people smoke in our factory because somebody took a cigarette one time and put it out in a garbage can and it burnt one of my factories down. So that kind of thing happens, right? You get a call at 2 a.m., factory's gone. First question is, everybody safe, right? Are we okay? Because anything else can be replaced. But the next question is, we got to take care of our people. We got to take care of our customers. We got to take care of our investors. Let's make sure we're back on this. It happens every day, and you just go with it. I had just one last piece. This is why you have to have a great team. This is why you want them actively involved. You don't want to be a leader with 30 administrative assistants. You want to be a leader that has 30 other leaders who are out there making it happen, having ownership, understanding the business, right? It's together we're stronger. Many hands make light work.
Yeah. Together we're stronger. A leader with 30 other leaders. Those are resonating words. We have actually another question, and you briefly mentioned top-down and bottom-up strategy. I think there's a question here really about how can an operational team develop and drive a bottom-up strategy when actually the resources are controlled from top management? Sometimes in our academic jargon, we talk about, bottom up and issue selling and things like that. How does that work in your business? If someone has a brilliant idea, how do they win you over?
Yeah, that's a really a great question. And so there's two different types of great ideas. So we are constantly soliciting ideas and feedback, and we're terrible at it. We try, but we're looking for ideas to come back up through the organization. We have everything from an email box you can send things to. They're actually boxes, physical boxes in our warehouses and things like that. A lot of those people who are working don't work with computers in our daily business, right? So we look for that, and we get brilliant ideas. And what we do is, most of the time, it's just they're just empowered to do it locally. So yeah, one of the issues that we had was just as a point, we have a location outside of Philadelphia, and it's about 500,000 square foot, and we ship products. Hundreds of thousands of products go out of this distribution center, and we were having problems where the lines were getting jammed up, right? And one of the suggestions was, because we were struggling to solve it, was, why don't we just put some Ring cameras in, these little cheap cameras you buy off of Amazon or wherever you get them from, and you'll be able to see it. And that's what we did. Now, it was just a short-term fix, but that came right off the people who were dealing with it. So if you empower your company and you put the tip of the spear wherever it's happening at, and you say, what should we do? They typically know, and they'll get you through it. Now, the bigger issues are going to have to come from the top down, generally because it demands capital. It demands resources that have to be shifted. No matter how big, how rich, how whatever you are, there's not enough resources to go around. There's always demand for more than what we have. There's only 24 hours in a day. Only so many hours are going to work a week, things like that. So we have to allocate our resources to where we think we can win. Sometimes if you're in one spot, you see something, go, man, this is a great opportunity. And it very well may be a terrific opportunity, but it may not outweigh the other pieces that we're doing. And that's where having a good strategy comes in. So one of our big things that we do is, as we develop strategy, we share this with everyone. Every quarter we have a town hall, goes across the whole company on a global. People dial in just like here. We'll have a couple thousand people on that. And we'll talk about, hey, this is our strategy. This is where we're going. Here's what's changed. Here's what we're continuing to do. Here's how we're doing. And we take questions just like we are here. So we want people to know. The other thing, remember I was talking about my job, is I travel all the time. I get out there. Every place I go, we do exactly the same thing. I walk in, we say hi to everyone, we tour the facility, and then we hold a town hall. And that town hall is about an hour long, sometimes longer. It's totally depending on them. We feed lunch. We have the town hall. People ask questions. That's really what they want. They want to know what's happening. And their favorite topic is, they always call it the favorite radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me, right? So, and we answer those questions. And that's how we get that buy-in. That's how we get the top up and the bottoms down. We just try to be listening, thoughtful, and have mechanisms where people can actually do it. If your team, because I read the thing, it's all with top management. You can read that two different ways. One is, well, the purse string is going to be controlled by someone, or you could be saying they're just not listening, right? Sometimes organizations, are going in directions that we don't all agree with. And, you have to decide as an individual, are you happy with that? If you're not happy with it, my suggestion is go find a place where you can be happy, right? But raise your hand, ask the questions. You'll be amazed at how big a difference it makes.
Okay, that's great to hear, and a couple of good examples, concrete examples. Thank you very much. Bill, one of the themes in your book, I think, is turnaround situations. We've been talking about long-term strategy, and I think the core identity, as it were, of your business, Arrowhead, you know what you're about fundamentally, but sometimes turnaround strategies can derail the long-term strategy, the underlying theme for this talk. What's your experience in turnaround, and how do you, as it were, maintain the sacredness of what's central to your business when things are having to change extremely fast under a lot of pressure? What's your experience of that, and what lessons might you have from that?
So turnarounds is where I spend most of my time today, right? So it's just sign of the times, and I've had some success in it. Once you get a little success, people want you to come do it. So every time they're putting in a new CEO, it generally, not always, but generally means something has gone wrong. Otherwise, why are they changing, right? And the source or the magnitude of that issue is going to determine a lot of things around speed and how quick you have to do it. When I came in and took over OTC as a CEO, back, it was at the height of the pandemic. People had gone home. We couldn't pay our bills. We weren't collecting. Prices were right. Everything you could imagine was going wrong. And I always like to say we hadn't made it to the crash site yet, but we could see it from the nose of the plane. We were heading right down. And the issue was we had to get people back. We had to go hire people. We had to get cash coming back in. We had to solve our pricing issues. Now, here's an interesting thing. If you think of a scale, on one end, the company's almost out of business. I mean, it's a tragedy we have to solve. It's a burning platform. And the other end is the company is very successful. It is far easier to come in a company that's struggling and make an impact, because people want to win, and they want to have a job. They like each other, and they will listen. However, if you're successful, whether you really are or not, but if you believe you're successful, it's almost impossible to get people to change. And if they do change, it's very slowly. So as a leader, when you look at a business you're going to take over, the first thing you say, is it in trouble? And is it systemic? Like, is there something here that can't be fixed? Like the market has changed in such a way, like we're making buggy whips and we don't ride horses anymore, right? So it's that kind of thing. You have to figure that out. Once you figure that out, and you start with your board. What is their goals, right? They're trying to save it or sell it or scrap it or whatever. You got to know that. Then it's very simple, right? You have to get that together, look at your balance sheet, and that's going to point you in a direction. And there's three things you have to go do. One is you got to give exceptional opportunities for your team, right? People want to win. You want to be a great partner to your suppliers and your customers, right? If they don't buy and they don't sell to you, you're out. And you've got to figure out how to give a superior return to your investors, right? So as a CEO, that's what you're facing. Those are the places you're going to look at, and that's how you're going to go win. By the way, Elder just said we missed their question. So let's see here.
All right, Elder.
Let's see here.
Do you set specific performance goals for your organization? I imagine you do. And how are these goals determined? But if performance falls short, do you typically attribute the shortfall to internal factors or external factors? I think that might be hard to generalize, but maybe take an example where you found it hard, where the performance shortfall was surprising and it was difficult to work out where the responsibility was. Perhaps something like that. I mean, take a particular example, Bill, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time, right? First of all, you must have metrics. What gets measured gets done, and you're always going to be looking at your core metrics. In addition, you will probably have a few metrics around whatever your strategic initiatives are. You can over measure things, right? And you should have all the metrics, but you should really only focus on just a few that is germane to your business, right? And things like profitability and cash, you got to measure those. You run out of cash, you're closing shop, right? You can actually lose money for a long time as long as you have cash. But things around growth and employee retention and all that, you have to measure that, right? And you need to look at it and talk about it on a regular basis. So the first thing I can guarantee you is you're going to miss your numbers, right? Particularly if you've set aggressive numbers, right? We said earlier, Richard and I, that the only thing you can count on is you won't hit it. You'll be either over or under. If you're constantly exceeding it, you set it too low. If you're constantly failing, you got something you got to go fix. What we focus on, what we talk about all the time is focus on what you can control. So we've gone through this tariff issue. Can't control any of that stuff, right? So we're not going to worry about that. We're going to place a bet on what we have around our balance sheet, our inventory, all the things that we can do. It'll tell us how far can we go. We're going to talk to our customers and ask them, all right, what do you need? We're going to make sure we're doing what we have to do to really get through this troubled time to calmer waters, right? We're steering the ship through it. So in order to do that, you got to be close to your business. Now, so what I look for is around with folks is I look for progress, not perfection. I don't actually care. This will sound weird, whether we're actually failing in things or not. I just want to fail fast because that didn't work, and let's go to the next piece, right? Because you just don't know on some of these things. I've mentioned tariffs, but it can be any other thing. These are controlled by outside forces. Someone else is driving that, or some other thing is driving it. My job is to say, I can deal with this, and this is what I'm going to go do. And the thing that starts happening is people actually start getting happier. They feel like they have some control over something. They feel like they have a chance to make it work. As a leader, if you are too tough on people, if they make a mistake and you're too hard on them, they'll go into risk averse and they'll shut down. And they'll say, yep, we're doing everything and nothing is happening. That is the kiss of death. You have to create a safe environment where people can make mistakes. You don't want to keep repeating the same mistakes. And there's thinking is required, right? So you want it to be at least like a mistake of a good effort, right? So if you've got that team and they feel empowered, remember it's their strategy, they feel empowered, and you want that progress, you have a really good shot of getting out of it.
Yeah, yeah. You need to keep the trust of the managers. And I'm gonna can put this in my memory banks, my memory store. Progress, not perfection. That's a lovely phrase. And that's what we need, isn't it? Always progress. And we know the world's imperfect and full of surprises. Thank you very much, Eldar, for asking that question, and apologies to you that we missed it. Do keep the questions coming. We there's a I think possibly we should turn to your book because you're doing a
Oh,
TEDx talk tomorrow. Is
yeah.
that right? And it's doing very, very well. That's from panic to profit. I get the sense already that you t touched on some of those themes, but you also talk about the 80/20 principle, and there are and that's actually another theme in your previous book as well. Perhaps you'd like to talk to that or some other issues that are very relevant from your latest book.
Yeah, thank you very much. Absolutely. I love talking about it. So if you the first book I wrote was called The 80/20 CEO. And really what that was introducing the concept, the process that we use to run business, what you do. And so in there, it talks about how in 100 days to come in and get command and control of a business, right? In other words, get everyone aligned and things like that. And then it talks about the tools, strategy, M&A, 80/20, which is a data process. We were very data driven, right? The second book, From Panic to Profit, is the kind of couple year journey. A journey takes about 3 years to turn a business around. It can be more or less, but generally about 3 years. The journey you go through in implementing that process, how you get buy-in, how you determine what your strategy should be, what are those processes, those tools, and what do you do? So, look, I of course like the books. I wrote them, but the response has been remarkable with it. Our process is simple and straightforward, right? It's around data, and here's the whole concept, right? So you through data and other things, you identify what's working. Well, you're making money. You should go do more of that. And you identify what's not working. This is crazy now. You should do less of that, right? And so people will always agree with that, right? We should focus on what we're winning with, right? This is where the rub comes in. People use their judgment to say what's not working and what is and why it was going to change. And it turns out you need to really start with the data. Let the numbers tell you where it's at, right? Once you have the data in front of you, it's very simple to get. Once you understand your A customers, the ones that buy all the stuff, and your A products, that where you make all your money at, once you understand that, you can take your resources and start shifting to them because the Pareto's principle, right, where most of us have heard of it at least, and it basically just states 80% of what we achieve comes from just 20% of what we do. Yet we
Mm.
continue to pour resources into that other 80%. I don't know, maybe because we want to be fair, maybe because we want to be balanced, but balance rarely changes anything. If you're going to grow your business, you're going to have to take the resources from that 80%, the stuff that's not working, and put it on the 20% that's the magic. That's what it is. Data will tell you how to go do that.
Yeah, and that seems to me to be the essence, the strategy to focus on what really pays off and to know what not to do. And I think the 80/20 will fits in very well there. Although you got another question, under uncertain times, data might not be representing the realities. And that's a good point because Bill, you're emphasizing the data and the analysis. Maybe the data is, and this is the nature of it, it's always representing the past, not the future. There's always a bit of a lag to data. So how do you cope with that, especially in uncertain, fast-moving times, one of our themes for today?
All right, elders on fire. So this was
There he
yeah.
is.
So this is very
We,
impressive.
we should be opening up, by the way, for a Q&A. Lauren, I don't know how you can manage that a little bit, but let's respond to Eldar's
Yeah,
point.
so there's the old joke. It's a little bit off color, so you'll have to maybe bleep me. But there's lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? So that's the third level of it. So it's true, right? Yeah, but the data is factual, right? It's how you interpret it that it's going to be. And so we
Mm.
talk about four things when we are running these businesses, looking at it to try to give ourselves permission because thinking is required, right? So well, the first one is be data driven. Go get your data, right? But there's the fact of the matter is because life comes at you so fast, you're going to operate in some area of gray. You've got to deal with ambiguity. So if you have less than 20% of the data, you're just guessing. If you have more than 80% of the data, you probably have taken so long, the whole market's passed you by. You need to be able to operate somewhere between back to the 80-20, but between I don't know what I'm doing to I have gone too long. You've got to deal with ambiguity, right? The second piece of it is be on pace. So you can be too fast, you can be too slow. If you are with your team and you're ahead of everyone, you've lost them, right? If you're behind everyone, right, you're the bottleneck. You need to be on pace. That's the right pace with what you're trying to accomplish. Sometimes that means we're up all night and we're waiting for the information to come in. Other times, if I don't have to make a decision, because I won't make that decision, even though I may want to make that decision, I may not make that decision because it's not necessary. Third one is no surprises, right? Bad news, relatives, and fish all stink after 3 days, right? You got to tell people what's happening. So you're looking at the data, you see something, you're not sure what it is. Elder, you're right. It's unclear, right? We don't know. Let's talk about that. And let's talk about it now at an appropriate time, not when it's too late. And here's the final one. And this is the most important. And that is results matter. We will not be a best efforts company. I hear people like, man, I tried my best. We actually have to win the majority of them. If you hit 300 in baseball, you go to the Hall of Fame. In business, you go out of business at 300, right? You've got to be something 700-800% right all the time. You got to have more wins than losses. People are counting on us. Jobs depend on us. People pay their mortgages and send their kids to school by what we do. We have to be together. We have to be focused on it. So if you have those four things, you can run anything. So Elder, you get that data, you're going to look at it, and the answers are not obvious with a lot of the times. You will clearly know who your best customers are. But heck, you may have lost them yesterday, right? You will clearly see who's not a good customer because they're not paying their bill. But it may be some reason you're unaware of. So you have to dive in, but it shows you where to go. It's like fishing, right? You go out there, you get a fish finder, you can see where it doesn't mean you're going to catch them. But you got to start with where they are, right? So that's how you do it. Thinking is required. Dive in, start talking to people. You'll be fine. You'll make better decisions. For sure, not perfect ones, but you'll make better ones.
Fabulous. Thank you, Bill. Do you rely on heuristics, rules of thumb, Eldar asks?
We
Do you have a
do.
few rules of thumb, two or three things you always stick to?
Yeah, we do. And it gives us a way to start, but you have to be careful that it doesn't become self-fulfilling prophecies, right? So I
Mm.
know when I look at a company, our model will deliver between 200 and 500 basis points of profitability improvement in the first year. Well, it does it every time, generally 300 bips or whatever. So if you're at 10% operating income, you're going to be at 13% by the time we're done year one. We also know the majority of that is going to come from pricing. That data tells us where we can pull the levers and some other work that we do with it. And we start at the same time knowing that we're going to start like productivity pieces, and the productivity which is can be everything from buying it cheaper, shutting a factory, putting in automation, adding I mean whatever it is. that will come in year two. It just takes a while to get through the contracts. It takes a while to get a greenfield going. And growth, we know from a rule of thumb, generally follows whatever the product cycle is, whatever that is. And so a lot of times you won't see growth until about year three of new businesses. You'll get all these things immediately and they'll continue, but the real big lump. So we go in knowing these things. We know about 25% of our costs are being wasted in what we call quad four. We also know we typically only get about half of it. We should be able to get them all. We're going to get about 12% of it, right? So these things help us size the prize and understand where to focus on it. And we start working through that. We have to be really careful, though, that those heuristics we don't believe are just truisms, right? That this is how it's actually going to be. Start somewhere, defeat the white page, listen, pay attention, keep moving. You'll get there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I think we get a last question. Oh, yeah. Eldar is very appreciative. Subhomoy, I apologize for mispronouncing your name. Um, Maybe the last question. How do you balance speed? Because this is a really good question, I think, given our theme of building long-term strategy and fast-moving times. How do you balance speed um, with Eldar's issue of heuristics? How do you manage the speed, the pace? Because you said 3 years. Now, you may have investors that are quite impatient. You may have cash flow problems, which you cannot ignore, especially in these turnaround situations. Are there occasions where you feel that you may be at risk of sacrificing the long term for the short term wins?
So you can strike the word may off of everything you said, because you will have cash flow problems. You will have investors who want to go faster. You will have employees who are dissatisfied, probably haven't had a raise in years, and they're going to
Yeah.
quit if you don't give them a raise and you don't have any cash, right? So you will have some problems just like this. Probably not all of them at once, but you'll absolutely have it. Speed is a competitive advantage, right? And there's a whole school of thought that goes around that we could spend a whole show on. But speed is a competitive advantage, and you have to be willing to go fast. You have to be willing to put it out there on the edge, and you'll be shocked at how fast you can go. So, like 100 days. Imagine I talk about that. How do you take command and control and turn a company around in 100 days, right? It almost doesn't seem possible. Well, it's really not possible in the sense of, right? But you have to start and you have to get through these actions, because the most important thing to begin with is, like we were saying, you got to make sure cash and these other things. So know what your key pieces are, but you have to get people aligned around just a couple key priorities. They have to get aligned around it. And there is going to be discussion and dissent and every other thing you can think of. People are going to disagree. And that's okay to disagree. That the great thing about disagreement is someone's going to be wrong. It's better if it's them, right? As the leader, your job is to get focused on something that's big enough to save it. The other stuff is just going to have to wait. That doesn't mean it's not important. That doesn't mean you're not going to have people quit. That doesn't mean you're not going to break some things. I will guarantee you're going to break things. But you have to pick the thing that if you solve this, it fixes it. The company can survive. That's where you go. It's like a doctor. A doctor comes in, and I know I'm not going to get this right, but I think they have this mnemonic of ABC or something, like airway, blood, circuit, whatever it is, right? If you look at a patient that's laying there, their leg is missing, they're not breathing, they've been in a gunshot wound, you're probably going to start with the not breathing, right? Because what do you got? Like a minute, right? So just depends. So you could fix the leg, great operation, patient died. We start with, let's save the patient. It's different every time, but it goes back to those fundamentals, those heuristics. Do you have enough cash to pay your bills? If not, where are you going to get it? Do you have people focus on the things that if they get it right, it's even meaningful? Majority of people are focused on things that are not meaningful. It was important, it's interesting to them, means nothing to the business, right? As the leader, you have to come in quickly, suss that out, and get people around it. Speed is the way you do it.
So, Pamoya, I think you've had a great response there. If there's a theme which has run through this talk, from when you said 9 initiatives too many, any organization can only do one or two, the chief executive has to decide what's important. And again, when you're saying speed, you need to keep the patient breathing and then forget about the leg just for now. It's focus. And that's a very powerful message, Bill. Thank you very much for that. I think we should close there with our thanks. You got some appreciation in the chat. Um, have fun tomorrow, your TEDx, and congratulations on your 2 books. It looks as if the second one is going to be at least as successful as the first. I'll mention it again, From Panic to Profit. And uh, we wish you all the best. The SMS is very grateful for your support and your input to our activities. So, on behalf of the Strategic Management Society and myself, thank you very much. So,